Good evening and welcome to the second episode of the Demonland podcast. We made it back for a second week. My name's Andy and joining me tonight is Grapeviney. Good evening.
Good evening, Andy, and good evening to all the Demonland listeners out there, and perhaps even some listeners who aren't on Demonland who've heard about the show and are tuning in. And look, we've got a big show coming up, a busy show coming up, but before we kick it off, I wanted to send out a cheerio to Bobby Clark, who you will remember was our inaugural caller last week.
Yes.
In episode 1, and he's up in Rockhampton, of course, and Rockhampton is still experiencing quite severe flooding after Cyclone Debbie. And so a big cheerio going out to Bobby Clark up there in Rockhampton. We hope you're okay, mate. Some homes without power, so I don't know if he's with us tonight, but we hope he's travelling okay.
Yeah, best of luck, Bobby. I haven't seen you pop up in the chat room yet, so hopefully you do.
I haven't seen him on Demonland all week, actually, so yes, maybe he's tuning in and can't join us.
Yeah, he might not have internet reception, so yeah, best of luck there, and well, hopefully things are restored by the weekend and you can watch your beloved D's take on the Cats. But before we start talking about next week's game, we have to talk about the game that we just played. So, we were lucky to get out of jail, I thought, against the Blues. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's luck so much. We were obviously the better side for, I think, most of the day. You know, there were periods in the second and third quarter, obviously, where Carlton got on top. But, you know, I think we both agreed at quarter time that we should have been much further ahead than we were. And then, obviously, Carlton sort of worked their way back into the game and restricted us, and we just couldn't get it happening until the final quarter. And I think I said to you on the way out, as we left the MCG on the weekend, that it was very similar to the Essendon and Carlton games last year. Mm-hmm. The round 2 loss to the Bombers and then the round 22 loss to the Blues, in that, you know, it was close all day. We weren't playing great footy, but you just got the sense that if they could get a couple of goals, consecutive goals, and get a little bit of a run on, then we'd be able to snuff out the opposition. And we weren't able to do that last year against the Bombers and the Blues, and we were able to do it this week. And that's an encouraging sign to be able to win ugly and to be able to step it up a gear and, you know, do the job when it comes to the crunch. And that's what happened on the weekend. So, yes, it wasn't pretty, but we got the 4 points, and that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it was. I don't think it was a problem of us being able to get the ball. We were getting plenty of the ball. We smashed them, and particularly at quarter time, half time, we had a lot more possessions than them. We were getting the ball. We were perhaps being a little bit too cute with our possessions, and maybe it's just a bit of inexperience that some of those things didn't come off. But I credit to the team that they're trying to take risks and trying to do things a bit differently, and it'll come off. I think eventually it'll all click, and those cutesy little passes will hit their mark. And credit to the team that they could still, you know, when they needed to get the job done, they got it done.
Yeah, you're not always going to have slick, brilliant football, are you? I mean, it's great when it happens, and sometimes it can last a quarter or half a game or even 3/4 of a game. But to sort of expect it week in, week out, you know, quarter by quarter, is you're not going to get that from any team, and you're certainly not going to get it from a very young and very inexperienced team. Yes. That is really only just starting to get used to playing together week in, week out. There will be bumps and hurdles along the way. The more of those games that we can win when there are bumps and hurdles, then the better we're going to be.
Yeah, someone in the chat room was just saying that they can't hear a thing, so I'll just reiterate that when you come into the chat room, and you won't be able to hear this, but I'm writing it in the chat, hit one of the play buttons on one of the players. We've got 2 players up there. One of them will work on most devices. One of them won't work on Apple devices, so there's another player up there that will work on them. So yeah, you do have to press play on one of those players. It doesn't automatically auto-play when you come into the room and come onto the page. So I was going to talk about age and experience, and we might get into that a bit later, because there was something published about the age, the medium or the average age and the average games played for teams, so we can get into that in a moment. But yeah, a young team, particularly isn't going to hit the targets always. But I watch some of the good teams, the Hawthorns of the past, and the Swans and even the Bulldogs, and you often see some very slick passes. They always hit chess and all that, and I'm not kind of seeing that yet with our team. It's great they're getting the ball, and that's the first thing. We're getting, first use of the ball. But yeah, I want to start seeing us, with some slick passes. I want to see that come off. And I know that it's not far off, but I want to see that. I want to be one of those.
Well, we've seen
teams.
glimpses of it, haven't we?
Oh,
we've seen, at various periods during last year, and in our better games, we've seen that on occasions, and it looks really good when it comes off. I actually thought one of the things in addition to, as you said, getting cute perhaps with the ball on occasions, I thought some of our midfielders actually gave the ball off too quickly. It looked like, I don't know whether it was the perceived pressure, but I thought that on a number of occasions they had a lot more time and space than what they felt. And so there was some very quick handballs and passes off that just needed a little bit more awareness to know that they weren't, about to be tackled imminently, and that there was a bit more time to give it off and perhaps just assess better options. And that's one of the things that stood out to me on the weekend too.
All right, we've got our first caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Yeah, g'day, Special Robert here, boys.
Hey, Special Robert, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Yeah, I'm here too, I'm Squirrel, I'm here.
Nice.
Yeah, 18 Atlantis, we're both here. How's everything going?
We're doing fantastic.
Where are you calling in from, Special Robert?
Oh, we're down at Batman Park, at the bottom of Spencer Street.
Right, what are you doing down there?
Oh, look, Squirrel and I, we hang out down there. But we're both keen Melbourne supporters, and I just wanted to say this week, what about Jesse and Jordan, eh? Oh, whack, whack, whack!
So,
oh, yeah, Penny whack the drumstick! Shut up, Squirrel! Yeah, Squirrel's right, but... me and the Squirrel, we love fighting. It's the best fun.
it is.
Yeah, we love it.
So, being serious for a second, because it is a very serious issue, what did you think of those two incidents? Was that irresponsible of leaders of the club, or are you happy to see the biff brought back? And
Well, we love fighting. I mean, fighting, that's the best part of footy. I mean, if anyone wants to have a fight, me and Squirrel are available any time. We just love it. And we reckon fighting is the totally awesome best part of footy. And it's gone in the game now, and it's ruined it. Yeah, so if anyone wants to have a fight with me and Squirrel, let us know, and we'll get in touch with Jordan, because sure as hell he'll want to come down.
Well, he does know where to find you now, so I'll thank you for
Demonland Fight Club.
Yes.
Yeah, no worries. Another thing, people often criticise the AFL, but one thing Squirrel and I reckon is that they've got right is playing Akadaka really loud at the footy. Yeah, go Akadaka! You know, Akadaka, they're the best band in the world, and Squirrel and I really just go off when they're on. I mean, they're on really loud every week. Yeah, Spencer does his crazy dancing. I reckon, you know, Akadaka should be on during the game as well. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, well, perhaps you can email your suggestion to the club, Special Robert.
Yeah, well, I will. You know, I don't even know if we need the grand old flag anymore. We should have Hell's Bells. Yeah, and then segue into It's a Long Way to the Top. Oh, shut up, Squirrel. Leave it a long way to the top. You're an idiot, Squirrel. It's a long way to the shop. It is not, Special. Oh, look, I know about Akadaka, Squirrel. They wrote that song with Preston way back, and they had to go miles to get a sausage roll at a milk bar. That's why they wrote it. Oh, you're stupid. Yeah, well, at least, Squirrel, I'm not trying to win Dance Like a Demon like you. Well,
we don't ever
no,
need
you're
to
not
be
going to bloody win. You're too old to bloody do Dance for a Demon. Rollo's never going to pick you, Squirrel.
Just fine.
He will.
Okay.
No, he won't.
All right. Anything else to add, Squirrel and Special Robert? It's certainly been a memorable call. Anything else to add? I'll take that as a no.
Okay.
He's hung up himself. I didn't even get to.
I think that's it for Special Robert and Squirrel and whoever else was in the room. And I don't even know if that was indeed Special Robert. It may well have been one of the other pranksters out there on Demon Land. What do you think?
Well, it might have been, it might not have been. I didn't get to unceremoniously dump him from the call. He dumped himself. But anyway, he did bring up the issue of the two boys that are in the two suspensions, the boys that are in the sitting in the naughty corner for the next couple of weeks. So, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think the general consensus, I'd agree with the general consensus, which is that both players were silly to do what they did. They clearly crossed the line. You know, you can argue this and that, but the bottom line is, if you put yourself in front of the MRP, you're subjecting yourself to their whim and their mercy, and you're going to come out with ridiculous punishments. And that's, I think, what we got this week. I thought Jesse probably deserved one, and Jordan, you know, with the bad record, probably two. So to get 3 and 2 weeks, I thought was very harsh. And the inconsistencies in the MRP's decisions and the penalties that they've handed out this year are just outrageous. When you look at the elbow to the face in the North and Geelong game, and Varco's bump, of course, from round one. And so the consistency isn't there, but, you know, the bottom line is don't do anything stupid and you won't be dealt with by the MRP. Yeah. If you put yourself before them, who knows what's going to come out.
Yeah, look, definitely, I agree with you. The inconsistency is there. They definitely deserve to be rubbed out. I know there were a lot of people saying, they got nothing to answer for. Yeah, they do. I definitely think 2 and 1 week was probably more appropriate for what they did. And yeah, they're just going to have to suffer it. I don't think we should have taken it any further and risk, longer penalties.
Well, the system penalises you basically for, it's geared against reviewing because you risk the greater penalty, of course. So the whole system is a joke, really.
Yeah, it is.
In the tribunal has always been thus in one way or another. What is annoying is that it looks like Carlton have gone to great lengths to stitch us up, or to, whatever lengths are available to them. We heard on Footy Classified that apparently they didn't mince words in their medical report, which was always going to help hang Jesse and Jordan, and ultimately it did. So I would have thought the bad blood that we saw boil over during the game will probably remain, and it'll be an interesting return match when we meet the Blues again later in the year.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to the good old days where, the clubs...
The players' code.
Yeah, the players' code. They sort of all looked after each other, but I'd say those days are good and buried and gone.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, what's interesting is I went to the club had a footy clinic yesterday for the junior members, and I took my nephew along, and Jack Viney had a black eye.
Yes.
Which was obviously, which he obviously got during the Carlton game, and bearing in mind Carlton's behaviour and the way they stitched us up, I took a photo of Jack's black eye and sent it to my brother, who is a doctor.
Yes.
And he's diagnosed a delayed onset of a fractured eye socket and 3 broken lashes. And he has submitted that medical report to the AFL. So we're expecting a call from the MRP to investigate exactly what happened to Jack's eye and how he got roughed up.
Yes, well, let's hope something comes of that.
Well, if nothing else, let's hope that somebody from that disgrace of a club, and I hate Carlton probably more than any other club in the competition, will end up in the Jack Viney made me cry thread. That's what we need.
Yes.
We need the kind of payback that won't earn Jack a suspension, but will leave someone in tears.
Well, we certainly weren't playing bruise-free football, and let's hope that. What's his name? What's the Cripps? He's apparently he's got a fractured jaw. He'll play this week for sure.
That's what the talk is. That's what they're saying. So Dangerfield played the week after Trengo's sling tackle.
Yeah, and their medical report also was quite harsh.
That's right.
If I recall correctly. And then he
now,
played
what's the phone number if people want to call in on?
That was a good
Special
question.
Robert managed to find it, but
Yes.
for those of our listeners who can't,
it is on top of the chat room if people are in the chat room, but there are other ways to listen to us. So if you want to give the show a call, it's 039016 3666, or you can Skype Demonland31. And I'm keeping an eye on my laptop here. If you do call in and I don't happen to answer it, it's either because I didn't see it or we're in the middle of a thing, in the middle of a conversation. I will bring you, if I do see it, I'll bring you on the call and get to you when we're ready. So if you do call in, just remember to turn down your device. Once I connect to you, you will be able to hear the show anyway while you're on the line. But if you can just stay a little bit quiet until we get to you, that'd be much appreciated, and we will get to you as soon as we can.
can I ask you a question? And this is something which our audience might want to give their input. What do you make of all these discussions this week on Demonland about Angus Brayshaw? I've seen him compared to Jimmy Toumpas.
I wouldn't do that.
I've seen people calling for him to be dropped this week, and there's even a discussion about offering him up as trade bait to Adelaide as part of some sort of deal to get Jake Lever to the club. I'm astonished by it. What do you? How have you sort of viewed all this?
Okay, there's no way I would drop him off the back of one
poor game.
One poor game
Because he was good in round one, wasn't he?
Yeah. I thought he was good. There's no way I'd drop him off the back of one poor game if 3, 4, 5 weeks down the track, or maybe even 3 or 4, in a couple of weeks down the track, if he's really struggling, he's got to go to the twos. I'm open for trade bait. I'm open to anything. There are certain players that have obviously probably got a cross against their name. He's probably not one of them yet. But we would have to get something very, very decent in return if his name is going to be up there for any trade scenarios. But it's probably too early to start, throwing him to the Wolves. And
too early. I think he's going to be a great player.
Yeah. No, I do too. But I'm saying if he continues the form,
comparing him to Toumpas, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's.
I saw that the stats are similar or were similar, but he's nothing like Jimmy Toumpas. No. He looks like a natural midfielder to me, and perhaps we're starting to build a strong midfield. Clayton Oliver's an obvious talent. Christian Petracca, maybe he's copping this unfavourable. This unfavourable talk because he's, perhaps seen as a lesser player to those two, which is nothing to sort of cry about. He just looks to me like he's going to be a great player in the future, and we've already seen glimpses of it. He had a super first year. Last year was not a great year mainly because of injury issues, which dogged him from the very outset. So, how can people be writing him off now?
Well, would you be more open to it if we were to get a player like Nat Fyfe as part of some trade deal involving him? Would that sweeten the deal for you?
Oh, well, Fyfe's, presuming he can recover from his injury and get back to playing his best, he's obviously one of the best players in the competition. Yeah. But I can't see Fyfe coming to Melbourne. I can't see us laying out that kind of money for a Fyfe when the chances are we're going to need to be paying top dollar to quite a number of our young players at the moment who in a few years, the Clayton Olivers, the Petraccas, and whenever Jesse's next contract comes up, we're going to have our own bills to pay, and I can't see us, getting into one of these huge multi-million-dollar deals that are being talked about for Fyfe and Josh Kelly.
Yeah, I think particularly because last year we did quite a lot to try and keep the band together, as I like to say. We've sort of stitched up,
which we did.
Yeah, we've sort of almost the whole team has sort of has been given sort of a contract, so they're sort of building something with this team. So I don't think we're going to be going for one of those marquee players, even though we're starting to become a bit of a destination club. But that might be for the Jordan Lewis type players who are sort of in the older bracket to try and poach someone for the last couple of years, who want sort of a tilt at the premiership, if that's where we're going to be heading. But I don't think we're going to be getting one of those Nat Fyfes or Dusties or anyone of that calibre.
Look, I'd love to hear from our listeners out there thoughts on Angus Brayshaw, and particularly like to hear from anyone who thinks that he's not up to it, because I'd love to hear the argument. I can't. It doesn't compute for me. When I watch him play, I see a very good footballer.
If you want to give your thoughts about Angus Brayshaw, 0390163666, or you can try us on Skype, Demonland31. If you've got Skype and a computer and a good microphone and headset, or even just Skype on your phone with the Apple earbuds, they're pretty good, and you'll sound crystal clear and like you're in the same room as us, even though we are not physically in the same room.
And look, it doesn't have to be about Angus Brayshaw. We were talking last week about, we've sort of briefly come across it again this week, the best youngster at the club. Is it Brayshaw? Is it Oliver? Is it Hogan? Is it Hunt? Or is it some other player? But don't feel restricted. You can ring in on any topic, as wide-ranging as you like. So it'll be good to have some calls.
Yeah, most definitely. And speaking of Clayton Oliver, once again, another, I think he got 35 possessions this week. I believe in the coaches' votes, he I think he
He
came
got
second.
the four. He got the four from both.
Yeah, he got the 4 from both. He's 1 point behind 2 other players. You know, obviously, I don't know how much bearing that has on sort of, you know, Brownlow type of stuff. And it's very early in the year to talk about that. But he's had 2 pretty good games to start off the year, and you know,
I think it's a good measure, the coaches' measure. I mean, there are different ones. Obviously, the Brownlow is done by the umpires, but you know, I think the players would value the Players' Award, the one that the players vote on, and I think that also there'd be pretty high value on the coaches' one too. So it's a great start to the season for Clary, and well, he's just he's wowing us, you know, week in, week out, isn't he? His debut game last year was superb, and he's really had a stellar start to 2017. I wouldn't be surprised if he fades over the year. You know, we know that there were issues with the condition that he came back in when pre-season training first started, but we've also heard that he very quickly took on board the feedback of his teammates and got himself in great nick. And look, he's looks in great nick. Whether it'll last out the season remains to be seen, but he's just going to go from strength to strength as he keeps learning the game, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy who was an absolute standout and probably showed exactly what he can do, and, you know, Christian Salem was on song. I thought he was particularly good overhead. A couple of the marks he took were fantastic.
Yep.
Very strong marks, and, you know, his skills are silky smooth, and yeah, another player that's we all knew he was good.
We've always known this about Salem. It was a matter of getting the opportunity to see it, wasn't it? I noticed online that Destroy All has commented that Oliver was good, Salem was perfect, and it's hard to disagree with that, isn't it?
Yep.
Salem played the comprehensive game, didn't he? Where he was able to hit the scoreboard and, you know, take some great marks and really influence the game all over the ground. So fingers crossed he can stay on the park, because he is as exciting a talent as there is on the list.
Yeah, so once again we had 3 players rack up over 30 possessions. And I always look at sort of possessions because I follow sort of the dream team type of, you know, the fantasy football stuff. So, you know, and I've noticed in the past, you know, Melbourne, we rarely had players racking up over 30 possessions. Occasionally Jones would get in there, or maybe Viney, but, you know, the last 2 games we've had, you know, multiple players get 30-plus possessions, and I know some of it's because we've got a high possession type of game plan now, but it's good to see us getting the ball, a lot of the ball.
Who would you have kicking for goal from 35 out to win a game?
Jack Watts.
Christian Salem or Jack Watts?
I didn't realise you were going to have either or. I always would have said Jack Watts, and I probably would, but I'd be perfectly happy for either of them to have a kick for goal. I think both of them have won games for us. I think didn't Salem win against Essendon?
But yep, yeah. Salem's was a lot closer. Watts was probably the more difficult
50,
kick.
Yeah, he was 50, 45, 50 out. Yeah, I'd take either of them. If either of them had it, I wouldn't be worried at all.
They're streets ahead of the others, aren't they?
Yeah.
What about Bernie Vince? Bernie Vince is good from a distance, isn't he?
Yeah, Bernie
probably
Vince,
better on the run.
Yeah, I was going to say on the run, or taking the handball off Maxi Gawn outside 50.
Yes,
he's
good in
he's
that
the
scenario,
9-point specialist for that type of kick.
Nathan Jones has become a bit of a clutch goal kicker, hasn't he? He seems to just bob up at the right time, and more often than not, he's on target.
Yeah,
he's added that to his game in recent years, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you about a couple of other players that played on the weekend. We had Harms returning to the team. What did you think of his game? And can he hold his place?
He had a great last quarter.
Yeah, he did a few nice things, a couple of nice handballs. He was involved in a few plays that we got goals off. And I think that's probably where he's best suited. Sort of going into the forward.
I'm not convinced by him. I think, as plenty of others have said, there's a question mark on his disposal.
Mm-hmm.
You can't question his enthusiasm.
Yep.
His attack on the footy is relentless, and it's as good as anyone else's. He's always looked better up forward than down back, I think. So, it's he's fringe for me. There'll be weeks when he'll get his opportunity, and there'll be weeks when he's probably on the outside. I can't see him cementing a regular spot in the forward line, because between Garlett and Kent and Hannon, and A and B is in there at the moment. We've seen Brayshaw spend a lot of time at half forward. Harms is behind most, if not all, of those players. So, I think he's good depth and fringe 22.
So, if he is in the team, where do you prefer to see him play, off a half back or half forward?
Oh, definitely half forward.
Yeah.
But, A and B has done a good job there the first 2 weeks of the year. Not as prominent himself against Carlton, but he was very good defensively. So it's going to be interesting, and we can talk about selection now or perhaps a bit later, but it's going to be interesting to see how Goodwin goes this week, whether there's a tall replacement for Jesse or whether he goes small and perhaps brings in Kent, and then you've got Kent, Hannon and Garlett.
Well, does Hannon hold his place in the team? He was very quiet early. I think in the last quarter he did a few nice things. He nearly took 2 ripper marks, but yeah, he didn't tear the house down. I think he had the lowest amount of possessions, maybe, along with Wiedemann. So yeah, what do you? Does he hold his place? Particularly when you got Kent knocking on the door, there's.
I think he still showed enough from round 1 that he might be worth persisting with. I don't know. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise selection for round 1 anyway. So, I mean, it's always difficult to know how he's rated internally by the coaches, but the fact that he made the starting team this year.
Yep.
The round 1 team would indicate he's rated pretty highly. So you look at it, selection's going to be really interesting this week. Do you think they'll go tall or small for Jesse? Is Tim Smith a chance of making his debut?
Look, I have no idea. How did he go at Casey?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't read the Clap report.
I didn't follow any of that this week. Probably came in unprepared for that, but
we should do our homework.
Yeah, I think so. If we're gonna pretend we're experts, I think one of us needs to do some homework. But I don't think anyone's fooled that we're experts. They know we're rank amateurs. But
no, definitely. If anyone's got that information to hand,
well, we do. Demon Jack has said Tim Smith had 20-odd touches and kicked 2 goals.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, he said, and then prefaced that with in the VFL. So, it's at Etihad, so we're not. The weather's not going to be a factor. I think it's going to be 27 degrees on. Or 26 or 27 on Saturday, so it's going to be a warm day anyway. So bring your air conditioners to the hot box.
Danelska makes a good point that Smith is no, he's not a youngster. He's not a young kid.
How old's he?
He's a mature age player, and he's had plenty of experience. So It's not like we're bringing in a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I still think Kent will come back. I think Kent is highly rated by the coaches, and they've probably just been waiting for him to
get
fully
some game under his belt.
Get a bit of game time under his belt before he comes back into the ones, and I think that will probably be this week.
Is Frost, where is Frost on the...
I think no. I think Frost and Wagner played a half each.
Okay, so they're obviously not ready to come back in.
No.
I mean, I'm just looking at our injury list now. We've got Garland obviously out for the season. Joel Smith is out 3 to 4 months. And I'll just, while we're talking about Joel Smith, I'm not sure if you read just before airtime, apparently he has signed a 2-year deal with the club. So that's semi-breaking news.
Well, that's good news. There's another one that we were talking about before, another one that's locked up. I think Billy Stretch is one whose signature still needs to be secured, but he won't be going anywhere, will he, Billy Stretch?
No, you wouldn't think so. I mean, unless the club uses him later in the year as trade bait for something. If he's one that hasn't signed on yet, they might keep a player like him in their back pocket. I mean, I wouldn't want to see him go, but that's the nature of football and the meat market. Sometimes players get traded, sort of against their wishes or against the supporters' wishes. But if it brings in someone who's quality, then might have to grin and bear it.
Now it's a given that Vince will come in for Lewis.
Oh, yeah, that's a given.
The question then is who comes in for Hogan, and will there be any other changes?
Well, so obviously someone has to come in for Hogan. Whether we go for Smith or Kent, it's got to be one of them. But
if they go tall, will they also bring in Kent and drop someone? Do you think, will Hannon go out?
Well, that's the thing. It's whether Hannon, he could be one. As I said, he didn't get a lot of the ball. I'm one to try and give kids game time, but we've also want to try and win this game. It's a good scalp to get. Geelong, I don't know. We could. I would have been more confident with Jesse and Jordan Lewis, but they're beatable.
Well, apparently, and this has just been posted by Destroy All, and this is breaking news. North have offered $20 million for 5 years for Billy Stretch.
I'll take it. Did we get some of that $20 million?
So I don't know. That's Billy Stretch is going to have to think about that.
Well, if
that's a good offer.
Yeah, who do we get in return?
Well, we can take Josh Kelly off them.
Yeah, for the
$9 million.
Yeah.
And use Billy Stretch's money to pay for it.
So getting back to the injury list, we've got that Pat McKenna during the week.
Yes.
He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So we're just dropping like flies. Aaron Vandenberg's injury is 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes. Yep.
That's a big one. Mitch King's still out with the knee, 3 weeks. And speaking of knee injuries, I saw Rewalt, who injured his knee against us, and we all thought he was going to be out for the season. He may be playing this week.
I saw that, yes. Yeah. Look, that's fine. We're not playing them,
that's
so...
Right. But it never happens to us,
Nick Rewalt. I don't think, in spite of BBO mocking him when he went down with his knee, which I think was just a little bit of poor form on Uncle Bitter's part to do that to any player, but certainly someone like Rewalt. I don't think anyone would begrudge him that he didn't... I think everyone's grateful that he didn't do a serious injury and what would have been a career-ending injury, probably.
Oh, you would say if he was out for the year, that would be all over Red Rover.
Good luck to him.
Moonshadow in the chat room has said, we won for F's sake. Why drop Hannon when he needs game time? Only make required changes after a win.
Yep,
So
there's strong logic to that.
yeah, so if anyone wants to give us a call and tell us who they think should be the ins and outs, 0390163666. Now is the time to talk about that. So if you've got any other ideas of who should come in, who should go out, or no change, with the exception of the suspended players, or you can Skype us on Demonland31. Yeah, so the others, we've got Jordan Lewis.
I mean, I thought it was interesting after round one, Richmond, who beat Carlton, they made three unforced changes. And I thought that's really strange for a winning team. Like, they might not have played great footy against Carlton. They let them score quite a high score. But it's unusual for teams to make wholesale changes when they've had a win, isn't it?
Well, it all depends on who's coming back. Like, you know, we've got, if Jesse Hogan was coming back and we had just beaten Freo by a good margin in a couple of weeks, well, Jesse Hogan's going to come back in the team and someone's going to have to be dropped. So I don't know. There's it depends who comes in, I guess, is what I'm saying. So back to the injury list. Well, Hogan and Lewis aren't injured, but they're going to be out for a couple of weeks. And then we've got Michael Hibberd in 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, he's been 1 to 2 weeks for a few weeks now. I'd like to see him be in the team, and quickly. We really probably need someone like him off half back.
Yes. It doesn't look to be getting any closer at the moment, though, does it? He's one of those that's whose progress to the outsider just stalls, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that worse can happen, which is what seems to happen to Vandenberg. Goes from 2 to 4 to 4 to 6, now to 6 to 8 or 8 to 10, and then bang, all of a sudden the season's gone. So, that's 2 years in a row for Vandenberg where, well, I'm not saying he's gone this year, but he's looking at missing a big chunk of the first part of the season. So
he just seems like one of those players that is always going to be injury prone, and that's we've just got to accept that. There's nothing we can do about it. I think he'll be like that for his entire career. There are just certain players that...
Do you think so? I mean, what do we base that off, a year and a bit? Or a year and a half, because he'll miss the first half of this year?
Yep.
I mean, is that when you then draw the line and say, well, no, it's too much?
No, I'm not going to get rid of him. I just think that's going to be the story of his career.
He's an interesting player as to whether he's best 22, and there would be... there's probably differing opinions on that.
I like him. I think he kicks goals whenever he's in the team. Sometimes he'll only bob it. He won't have a lot of possessions, but he'll get... he won't have a lot of possessions, but he'll kick goals. And if he kicks a couple of goals a game, then, that's what he's in the team for.
Yep.
So, and then last person on the injury list is Liam Hewlett, who's still a week out with a hip injury. So, not sure how far off he is to get another game. But
he's been out most of the pre-season, hasn't he?
Yeah,
we sort of really haven't seen him at all on the track, have we?
No. So he's going to take a while to get into the team. So sort of that injury list is mounting, so it doesn't help.
It's to players who, well, they're not in the sort of the top 10, are they? We've got our most important players out on the ground.
Yeah, not. There's sort of none of the.
It's the bottom 622, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like probably of the players there that would get a game, you would say is probably Vandenberg. He's sort of borderline, and Joel Smith was probably going to be factor into the team, but no one else on that list. Hibberd as well, you could say. Once fit, will probably be a certain starter. And then, that's why it's quite silly where you got guys like Hogan and Lewis, out of the team when they're fit and firing. So,
Now, Uncle Bitter has just asked if we're taking calls tonight, and we
So,
are.
yeah, yes.
We're live.
Live.
The lines are open. The board of lights is flashing up. So by all means call in. We've already spoken to Special Robert, or someone impersonating Special Robert. So by all means call in. There's lots to talk about. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so if you want to give us a call at 03 9016 3666 or Skype on Demonland31, you can call at any time during the show. If I bring you up, and having said that, someone is on the line. I'll answer that call now. Hello, you are on the air. Who are we
from the man.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Bitter from the Manor here.
Oh, hi, Bitter. How are you?
Well, I'm simply wonderful. I'm quaffing a decent Shiraz, and I've had some dreadful problems, so I don't really know what's preceded my conversation. NBN, you understand?
Yes, I do. Did you manage to get the program to play on your computer?
Well, I'm working on my pad at the moment, and I have pad problems. I've had them in the past. Incontinence pads.
Oh dear.
Anyway, what were we talking about? I went to the football. I went to the game last Saturday. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Who did you go with, Bitters?
Oh, some very dicey company, I must say. But I have to say this: I went up into my membership's up in the Betty Cuthbert area, and I went in there, and there was a whole stack of Carlton supporters up there. How do you account for that?
Is it the Betty Cuthbert area? Is that in the southern stand? Is it near the Redlegs?
It's outside the Jim Stein's room.
Oh, in the northern stand.
Yes, level 2. Anyway, there was all these young Sheilas wearing Carlton jumpers.
Well, I don't like that. That's near where we are, Andy.
Yeah, I think so.
The Jim Stein.
I assumed they were the
just in front of that.
Entertainment.
I didn't notice that, Bitters. No.
Post-game entertainment, I thought. But anyway, they kept themselves quiet, so that was good.
Yeah, I don't know about opposition supporters being in a Melbourne-only area. I don't like it when Melbourne members bring their opposition fan friends to the game, particularly when we lose.
It's a sad thing. The only friends I have are opposition supporters.
I know. I'm the same.
Well, don't you go to the footy with Biffin and some of the other Gatwick mob?
Yeah, but they're hardly friends. I mean, Biffin tags along looking for free drinks. I mean,
right.
It's a sad and pathetic situation, really.
That line reminds me of Vivian on the Young Ones. He's got lots of friends, but he doesn't like any of them.
Yeah. I believe Special Robert called in earlier.
Well, I'm suspicious. I actually don't think it was Special Robert. I think it might have been someone pretending to be Special Robert and Squirrel down there down on the banks of the Yarra.
No, I think he confirmed that it was him. And he's
calling from a stolen phone, no doubt.
And he has confirmed in the chat room that it was him. So
okay. Well, what's the footy talk? I've missed all this. What's the current footy talk?
Well, we sort of gave our thoughts on the game, and we've talked about our injury list, and we were just sort of discussing who should be in and out. Obviously, we've got the 2 suspensions. Vince comes in for Lewis, and who replaces Jesse? Do we go tall or do we go short?
I'm a pedo man.
Yeah, but I'm sure you are a pedo man.
But it's interesting, isn't it? No, I'd go for Feddo.
Yeah,
I don't think he's had any match practice. That's the only issue there.
Well, I think he has played at Casey. I'm a pedo fan as well.
Yeah, I really do like him.
I'm not sure. He just doesn't seem to be on the fringe at the moment, does he? There hasn't been a lot of discussion about him or talk that he might come in to replace Jesse.
I agree, but he's a good goer.
I think he's really good. He's good. He's a good mark. He can kick goals, but I don't think he's in the. I don't think he's in Goody's mix of players for the future. I think he's there purely to make up numbers.
Are you going to replace Tall with Tall, or what? That's the question, isn't it?
That's what we've been asking. So, what do you think? Do we go Tall with Tall, or do we go for a Kent as a replacement?
Well, if you go Tall with Tall, it's only Pedo or Spencer, I reckon.
No Tim Smith?
Sorry?
No Tim Smith?
I don't know how he's been going. I don't know a lot about him. The thing I can see with Spencer is that you can leave Max in the forward line a bit more, and Spencer can do what he does best, which is the ruck work. Plus, he's got a bit of mongrel about him, Spencer, which is always a good thing, I reckon. So, yeah, I don't know a lot about Smith. I know there's big raps on him, but it's an important game for us. So we know what Spencer brings to the table, which is he'll compete hard in the ruck, and he'll be a bit aggressive, and he'll be a bit of a mongrel, and it'll free Max up. If you don't bring a big bloke in like that, that puts a lot of pressure on Wiedemann and Watts to take a grab. I'm not sure that. I think that might be unreasonable pressure.
We saw Geelong at times against North Melbourne didn't contest the ruck. Would it then be a mistake to bring in Spencer if they're going to try that tactic and just rove off us?
Well, they've got a strong midfield, haven't they? But if we can stop one of their two big guns, Duckwood or the other bloke, we're a chance. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. Will they go with the same tactic twice? Will they go with that tactic at Etihad? Remember, we beat them a couple of years ago with Big Jake in the side. So different side, of course.
Yep, it's a different side and it's a different ground. And look, I think the most important thing about with that Geelong win, and it's the same with the Hawthorn win, was where the odds were against us in both those games, not just because we didn't have Jesse, but no one gave us a chance and we came out and did what we had to do.
We seem to...
Hey, I've got to tell you a story. I thought, being a responsible citizen, I decided not to drive to the football. I caught the train in from Scumbury. And anyway, all these bloody bogans got on with, these knee-length shorts and tats and fat gutses. Well, nothing against the fat guts, of course. And they're all wearing Melbourne attire. How do you work that out?
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? We're broadening the membership base if we've got
I reckon
supporters out in Sunbury, as you say, and they're wearing the hip new threads of the younger generation. That's what we want.
Oh, well, we've got to retain a bit of class, don't we?
This is coming from someone who hangs out with the crew at the Gatwick, talking about class. You've got to be.
Well, they hang out with me, to be fair. But you couldn't imagine these bogans.
Is anyone over at the Romsey Manor tonight?
You couldn't imagine these bogans up in a plane.
Hello?
Yeah, you couldn't imagine these bogans up at the après ski, surely.
No, well, they probably couldn't afford it, could they? Is that somewhere you spend some of your time up there at Bulla, Bitters?
Well, I spent a bit of time up at Dinner Plain over the years, I must admit. But now the lads used to like going up into the mountains, sort of bit of the old country about it. But I prefer to stay in the little burg of Romsey when I can. I've got everything laid on here.
Yep, well, it sounds like a palace fit for a king.
Indeed it is. Now, look, I'm going to conclude this conversation now because my glass is empty.
Okay, you go fill up your glass and enjoy.
Now, what's your tip? How much will we win by?
Well, I'm a glass is half empty kind of guy, so I'm not so sure we will win. But
Put your nuts on the line, come on.
I'll leave any predictions of victory to my co-host here. So, Grapeviney, how much are we going to win by?
I think Melbourne by about 4 goals.
I'm with you, Grape.
I think Melbourne comfortably.
I'm not so sure, but let's hope you guys are both right.
Are you going to be at the game, Bitters?
No, it's not. No, look.
You've only got the home game membership?
Well, yeah, I've got the full deal, but I can get in there. But I just hate the ground. I'll watch it. I'll watch it from the home theatre with the lads.
Very good. Well, I hope you enjoy yourself and we have a good win.
Good night, lads.
Good night. Thank you for calling, and please call in again.
My pleasure.
All right. Yeah,
good on you, Bitters.
That was bitter but optimistic, and he certainly did seem optimistic, predicting.
We haven't really seen the bitter side of him yet, have we?
No.
But look, it's been a good start to the season, so he hasn't had a lot to be bitter about just yet. So who knows?
Perhaps next week the bitterness will come out.
Moonshadow says that he's clearly had a skinful. I don't think he was. I don't think he was that inebriated.
No, I think last week he might have been, but not this week.
And he can probably hold his liquor, BBO. So he may well have had a glass or two.
Yes. So another thing I wanted to talk about this week, the Herald Sun had an article where they talked about the age. The average age and the average games played. Is there anything? Do you read anything into those type of ladders where I think average age and I'm just pulling up our stats about that. Age and experience ladders.
I think we were 23 or something, and
we were
on about 70 games.
We were clearly the youngest in the league. So average age, we're 23 years, 23 and a half, basically. Next one's 23.7, and that's the Suns. And then when you go in terms of experience, we're 70, Gold Coast is 66.5, and the next one's Brisbane ahead of us at 74 games. I mean, do you read much into that? I mean, I often, for mine, I've sort of, in the last few years, I've been using that as an excuse for a bit of our inconsistency by saying they're a young team, so they're going to have, they're going to have the good games, they're going to have the bad games, because they're a young team, because, they've only had, and most of the players, we've got an average game played of 70, but the majority of the players hadn't played. We had a lot of players that had played under 10 games at one stage last year.
Well, they're still inexperienced, those players. So it's not that I put so much store into those stats, but there's truth to it. We all know that the players really don't hit their strides, or most players don't hit their strides until they've been in the system for a number of years, have put a number of pre-seasons down properly, have had a chance to build up their bodies, build up their tanks, and have played in enough games that they've dealt with a variety of different scenarios numerous times, so they're comfortable in virtually all kinds of situations. So until that happens, no one likes to hear it used as an excuse for losing. And Ruse copped it a bit last year when he did mention it as, a reason for us not playing well. But I think it's valid. And as I say, no one wants to hear it. Well, you don't want to hear it week in, week out. And it's not the excuse for everything, but it is a factor. And it's just something that only time can fix. And hopefully the majority of those players stay fit. They continue to do full pre-seasons and they get the games under their belt. And then once they've played 60, 70, 80, 90 games, rather than 10, 20 and 30, then we're going to start to see consistently strong performances.
I think what was interesting was that, and someone, I think, little Goffey on Demonland in a post this week said that for us, our only teenagers on the field were Oliver and Wiedemann, and then Billy Stretch was our only 20-year-old. So the rest of the players, like about 16 or so of the players, were between the ages of 21 and 23 years. Who are those guys, that are in that, the Petracas, the Brayshaws that are in that...
Jack Viney.
Yeah. And it gives us a lot of time to sort of to shape this list, over the next 4 or 5 years. And, I'm
Jack Viney's a perfect example of someone who's been in the system already. What I think this is it's either his 4th or his 5th year. 4th, I think. And look, he's plays some great football. He's won a club best and fairest already, but he's had a slow start to this season, and there are weeks where he's quiet. Now, in another year or two, you'd expect that he's going to be prominent in 20 out of 23 weeks rather than in, say, 15 out of 23 weeks. So even someone like Viney, who's had quite a number of years in the system already and has, largely played for most of that time, hasn't been injured, there's still development happening. So, there's a lot of players that have had a lot less development than Jack Viney. So I think it's relevant. Yep.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that age ladder, and see how much it changes in the next few years. Now, Dominatrix Tyson in the chat room has asked an interesting question, referring to the coming game, in regards to who do we tag? Do we tag Dangerfield or Selwood, or both, or neither? Do we play our own game?
Look, I don't know. I don't know, they were talking the other night on one of the footy shows that the tag has sort of gone out of the game, or the hard tag has gone out of the game. Bernie Vince, of course, we all know, stitched up Danger a couple of years ago over there in Adelaide, got right under his skin and got the better of him. Vince, of course, since then has been spending more time at half-back, so I wouldn't have thought... Look, yeah, I can't see Bernie going to him. Viney's the other one who can do that kind of thing. Will they go a hard tag? I'm not sure.
Was anyone tagging Cripps on the weekend? I thought I saw at one stage, Brayshaw sort of manning him quite closely, but then again I saw Cripps sort of on his own all over the ground, so I don't think we had too hard a tag on him.
I don't think I don't think there was a hard tag. I know some of the time Oliver was going with him, but I think it changes, and I must admit I've seen a bit of the replay, but I haven't watched the whole thing, and I certainly haven't watched for match-ups and things like that, but I think they sort of rotate it almost, don't they? Well, not rotate it, but it depends who's where at any given moment as to who you're sort of standing alongside at a particular stoppage. So, I don't know. Will they just trust Max to win in the ruck, and therefore, just think offensively rather than thinking that we need to go into it defensively? But, on the other hand, we know that Dangerfield and Selwood are responsible for so much. They're the engine room at Geelong, so if you can shut down one of them or shut down both, then you're going a long way towards winning the game probably. So, there'd be some attraction for Goodwin and co to do it, wouldn't there?
Well, I think one thing is for sure, at some stage during the game, Selwood will be bleeding. He always seems to be getting stitched up or going off with the blood rule.
Well, he finished up. That game was on. Well, we were playing last week, so I didn't see the North Geelong game. But apparently, he and Dangerfield were both rampant in the last quarter comeback, and as he always does, Selwood had blood running down his face. So it was just a standard week for him, wasn't it?
Yeah. It always is. If anyone else wants to give a call, give your thoughts on the upcoming game, 039016 3666, or you can Skype on Demonland31. Someone did ask to be connected to the Demonland31 thing on Skype, so if you do want to give us a call, please do. It'd be good to try out and test out the Skype connection. So if you want to go ahead and give me a call, please do so. So anything else in regards to the upcoming match, or any other issues on Demonland?
Well, I got a bit of a gripe about Demonland, to be honest.
All right, take it up with the management.
I'm bypassing management, and I'm taking it straight to the people, and I'm going against my own rules here, because I told off a poster during the week for constantly critiquing the forum.
Yep.
And I'm about to do that exact same thing, and it relates to the Essendon thread, the doping thread, which is Essendon thread mark 15 or something. There's been so many incarnations of that thread dating back to, 1930 or whenever the actual doping happened, because it did happen so long ago. And those threads have gone for hundreds of pages, then they've been closed, and then the Dons have appealed, and we've opened up a new thread, and a new chapter in the saga opened up, and then they lost, and then they appealed again, and they've gone to the highest court in the Milky Way galaxy, if not the universe, and it's over now. They've served their suspension. They've come back. The first games have been played, and people are still talking about Essendon on Demonland, and it's a blight on the board, because we're a Melbourne board. We're not a general footy board, although non-Melbourne topics, of course, come up. But why do we have a thread that's just devoted to Essendon, where you've got only a handful of people who are venting about something that happened many years ago? Now, we've come to the end of the road. There's nowhere left to go on this. And I know that I don't have to read it, but it's bad enough just seeing it on the board. And when you're on the mobile and it says, next unread thread, and it's got the Bombers doping scandal, it absolutely infuriates me. And people need to stop venting about something that happened years ago now. And, asking for evidence, or we haven't seen the documents yet, and when's he going to give back the Brownlow? I mean, it's like continuing to discuss John F. Kennedy's assassination. We're not going to get to the bottom of this. We're not going to see the documents, which probably don't even exist. So it's time to close that thread and close that whole discussion down permanently. So, this is a risky call from me, because I know that Whispering Jack himself is sometimes in there, so I risk earning the ire of Demonland's, head honcho in this. But I hate seeing that thread on the board, and it should be banished.
Well,
forever.
It actually took me a little while to find that thread. It's buried 3 pages deep in the Melbourne Demons forum. last post was Friday evening at 11:59 p.m. So I'm glad that after a few days, almost a week, you're still angry about this thread.
I actually searched for it today as well, just to see where it was, and I noticed it has been quiet for a few days, but inevitably someone will bring it back to the top of the board. And I'm conscious that we should stop talking about it, because I can see online already that even just the small number of listeners that we've got tuning in now, they're bored to death of Essendon. Everyone is sick to death of this club.
Yeah.
They've shoved their saga down our throat for however many years now, and it's time everyone moved on. And I'm glad I got that off my chest.
I'll just say one thing about Essendon, and I don't care about the doping thing. I've been out of my head. But what sickens me is how the current the players that have come back are being treated by the media and everyone as returning heroes. And I don't see them as that. I won't go so far and call them cheats or drug cheats, but I don't think they should be treated as returning heroes. And I think sometimes I think that the commentators would like nothing more than for them to win the premiership this year and be hailed as these heroes, because I don't think they are.
Well, that's not going to happen. And even that conversation, that sort of happened last week, didn't it, with all the emotion surrounding the round one game against Hawthorn. But we're into the season now. They're back. It's time to forget the bloody drug saga.
Yeah. Well, Biffen has asked for a ban for you for sedition. So, I'm going to have to agree.
Well, as I said, Whispering Jack still posts in it occasionally, so I might well get wrapped over the knuckles by Whispering.
Yes, so, you might... I was hoping Whispering would either join us tonight or call in. But apparently he has other more pressing issues. I think he's gone out for dinner tonight. He's not even listening.
Well, that's no good. Usually he can be counted. He's usually, studying the TAC or even some of the school competitions. So he's usually got his head, trained on the screen or deep in some of his statistical books. Preparing pieces for Demonland, but he deserves a break like anyone else. So good luck to him, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we were all spared some of his what he thinks is comedy, because when he did mention that he might want to join us one week or at least call in, he did say he had a few jokes lined up, and yes, you would have been able to hear my eyes rolling from wherever you were. Because I'm sure you're familiar with his type of humour, and it's...
Well, most of those jokes would belong in the no TS, no BS thread, wouldn't they? Yeah. And look, it's bad enough that we've got that thread on the board, which, talks about everything not related to Melbourne. So,
well, I think that thread remains so that we can contain... that type of stuff, just in
all that stuff to one place.
That's right, one thread where you can avoid, and you can put that police tape around it, so that if you don't want to enter, you don't have to. And I don't think I've ever have been in that thread very often.
Well, it's populated by what Biffen calls the intellectual delinquents.
Well, there you go.
And oddly enough, quite a few of our listeners are some of the posters in that thread, so we won't talk trash about it.
Yes.
Because they are responsible for its upkeep along with Redleg.
Yes, that's right. Redleg is... And Redleg, actually, I saw Redleg and I told him that we were doing a podcast, and he said his answer to that was, "What's a podcast?" So I don't think he'll ever be calling it.
That's a bit of a shame, because it'd be good to get Redleg on one night, perhaps as a guest, and some Demonlanders would know he was a team manager
back in the early
Melbourne
80s.
Back in the late 70s. And it'd be great to talk to him about his experiences at the club during that time. It was a completely different game back then and a completely different club back then, obviously. And, footy was very different. So it'd be great to talk to Redleg one night about the good old days.
Yeah, I gather if we were back in those days, we would be Jesse Hogan and Jordan Lewis would probably be playing this week.
Well, yes, exactly. That's one of the many things, absolutely.
So if I don't know if we are going to be getting any more callers to call in, so unless you have something else you'd like to talk about, we might...
It is getting late, isn't it?
Yeah, well past my bedtime.
And I'm just worried that, as Biffin says, that it's just getting too highbrow for these Philistines. So
Yes.
I don't know whether he's talking about the thread or the show or both, but we need to be mindful of our audience.
Oh, most definitely.
And they need to get up tomorrow morning and go to work and log on to Demon Land bright and early.
That's the thing. And one week we might open up the calls to people to talk about how they found Demon Land, how they use Demon Land, how much time they waste at work on... Oops, press the wrong button there. How much time they waste on Demon Land a day. And, yeah, we'll open the calls up to that one week.
And if Special Robert is down on the river, how is he logging in even, let alone calling in? So lots of queries to be answered.
Well, he was probably just using the 4G on his mobile, if he indeed owns a mobile. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. You'll be able to download this show through SoundCloud. I'll post a link on Demon Land at some point in the next day or so. You can also download us through the podcast app on iTunes, or you can illegally download it from some disreputable source. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Grapeviney, once again. And we'll
Good
be
talking,
back.
Andy.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Now, next week we probably won't be back at the same time. I'm going to have to speak to you, Grapeviney, and see if we can maybe do sometime either during the day. We might have to pre-record, or I don't know. We'll do something. We'll figure something out because I have a very busy week on next week. But we'll work something out. All right. From Demon Land headquarters, thank you very much for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night, all.
Good night.
We got the speed, we got the need, we got the power to beat. We got the skill, we got the free.